Hey guys, it's Jen and welcome to the last stamping and scrapbooking video. I am starting today with this photo of my daughter. She is watching something or playing a game on the Kindle in the car, and this is a layout all about how she was such a good traveler. We had to make 2 long weekend trips. Like seriously, we had to drive all day up to Oregon and back, and then down to Arizona and back for funerals for my uncle and my grandma last year. Or maybe it was 2 years ago. Could it really be 2 years ago? Anyway, I wanted to just talk about how much of a trooper she was and how grateful I was for that little blessing while we were going through kind of a hard time. And so I'm using this photo. I'm going to be using papers and products from the most recent Felicity Jane kit, which is called Susie, and I'm also going to be using a bunch of Felicity Jane stamps, mostly words. And so I've just pulled a bunch. I'll link to any of them that are still available. I'll probably be using a couple from this month's kit, which I know is still available. So and I will fully admit that this technique that I'm going to be doing, I am borrowing this technique from Sue's Fish, who is also on that Felicity Jane design team, and it's an awesome technique. So I'm just going to get right to work and show you what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to start with is some black, just acrylic paint, and what I'm going to do is the photo is completely dark, and I'm just going to kind of extend that so it looks like the photo is floating. And so I'm just painting some black behind the photo, and like I mentioned, this is a technique that I saw Sue's Fish do, and she did it with black too. And I will say that honestly, I don't love the way that this turned out, but I still think it's a cool technique, and it's not worth not showing you. So definitely still keeping it real, but just painting that so that there's enough to go all around my photo, but I want kind of that painty look with the edges not completely clean. Okay, so because this is acrylic paint, it dries pretty quickly. There's still a spot in the very middle that's still a little bit wet. You can see where it's shiny. But I'm just going to go ahead and get started, because what I'm going to do is stamp around the outsides of this part where I painted. And so I'm going to choose words and phrases that go along with the theme of my layout, which are things about my daughter being a good traveler. And so anything that's like thankful or you're awesome or anything like that, I want to do. And I did want to use a few of these, the one that says here we go and maybe adventure. So I'll start with that. I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to get the stamp, and I'm using the same color ink as the paint. You could do this in any color, but I did the black because I wanted it to be an extension of the photo, because the photo's black, and so I just wanted to give that kind of vibe, and I really like the way it looks on there. So I'm just going to ink it up in black, and I'm just going to stamp this in a few areas right around the ink. And the whole idea is that it kind of looks like it's flowing out from the paint. And so it's not going to be super noticeable. It's just going to be this little detail. And once I get a bunch of different stamping on there, it's going to look really cool. So I did here we go. Let's do another one. Let's see, what can we do from the new? I'm going to do what's next, because that kind of goes along with part of the story I'm going to tell. So I'm just going to stamp it all around. Some of them will be more in the paint and some of them less. So I'm just going to choose a bunch of phrases and keep continuing this. So I'll put you back on fast forward while I finish that up. So as I mentioned, I'm just using various stamp sets. They are all from Felicity Jane kits, and I'll link to any that are still available. But what I'm just trying to do is to get some of them to look like they're coming right out of the paint, and they're just kind of an extension of the paint. And I maybe went a little bit overboard and could have been a little less heavy-handed with the stamping, but I think it looks kind of cool, and I think this could be really pretty with a light color too. But I really like the black for this particular photo because, like I said, it's kind of an extension of the photo. Since it's so black, it kind of looks like the photo just blends right into the page, which I really like in this case. As I mentioned, I'm trying to choose words that go along with the phrasing, or with the, not the phrasing, but that go along with the theme of my layout and kind of what I want to say about my daughter and how much of a trooper she was. And so I'm stamping words like amazing, here we go, what's next, hashtag blessed. I decided to use this heart as well. And then I also stamped some days of the week because these were weekend trips that we took, and so I just wanted to include that also. Now you can see that I finished that, and now when I lay my photo on there, it really does blend right into the background. Now I know I want to balance this with something in the top right, and this is kind of where I went a little bit overboard maybe. I wanted to create a cluster up here, and I'm just trying to decide how I want to do that. I like the idea of bringing in the craft. I like what it does for the layout, and I kind of want to keep the rest of the layout kind of bright. I don't want this to be too dark of a layout, but I'm just layering up some of the cards with a tag. I thought about maybe using that yellow doily, but in the end I just thought it didn't quite work with this, and so I decided to take it off. So I'm just going to push these pieces around and play with them a bit until I decide what I want, and I do end up keeping that tag. I just like the addition of the craft for some reason. And I pull out these vellum hearts that came in the kit, and I like the idea of using two of them and overlapping them so you really get the effect of the vellum. And then I decided to put them over this plus sign little card, and I like the way that you can see the plus signs through the vellum hearts. And now I'm trying to decide on my title here, and I'm going to use the white letters. That'll be a nice contrast against the black. I'm going to put them right on the top of the photo. I like to do that with my titles, is put them near the photo, often overlapping them, and it just helps to draw your eye there. So I decided to make the title The Best Travel Buddy, and I'm just using some wax paper and these puffy stickers that are from 7 Paper that came in the kit. And I like to use the wax paper so I can move my title around and decide where I want it before I commit. And I'm just going to think about what I want to use for the subtitle. And I go back to my old trusty Teresa Collins little tile alphabet stickers, and they are just perfect for subtitles. And so I'm going to write the best with those letters. So as I'm creating this title, I'm kind of thinking of ways that I can incorporate these two clusters together, the photo cluster and that top cluster. So I'm thinking about how I can bring color into the black of the photo area, and then also some black up to that top area. And so I decide to paint some black underneath that cluster. And kind of this is where I think I went a little too far with the black, but I ended up keeping it. It's a story documented, and that's the most important thing to me. Not every single layout of mine is a masterpiece, and I realize that of myself. And I'm okay to share those because, you know what, I got my story documented, and you should feel the same way. Don't feel like everything has to be absolutely perfect. So, like I mentioned before, the acrylic paint dries pretty quickly, so I'm just going to go right in with some stamping, and I decide to use different stamps than what I used on the rest of it. So I pulled out the stamp that says I love you. I'm also going to choose one that says awesome, one that says go girl, and you got this. And I like the way that those words are a little bit different than the ones on the bottom, just something a little different to look at. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and place my cluster back down and see how I want to finish that off. I have this little tag that's from the cut apart sheet that I kind of want to incorporate somewhere, but I'm not sure yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I know, which is where the photo's going. So I go ahead and adhere that down, and I'm going to put down my title as well. And I will skip forward here so you don't have to watch me do all of that. And now I'm bringing some color down into that main photo area with I just decided it would be nice to have the words "the best" sitting on a different color. And so I'm just layering up some of the labels that come on the cut apart sheet to bring in the bright colors from the top cluster. And this is a really good way to create a cohesive look across the layout, is to repeat colors and elements. So I just made sure that enough of that pink label was poking out of the top of the photo so that I could rest those letters on top of it nicely. And now I'm going to, I think, get adhering that top right cluster a little bit here. So I'm thinking about where I want to put that flare, and I know that I need something to the left of the best, and so I'm just thinking about what I might be able to put there. I pulled out some puffy stickers, but I'm not going to end up using those. So I pulled out a bunch of different things just from my stash that aren't going to make it onto the layout. I pulled out some labels, stickers, all sorts of different things. And then ultimately I decide to put that tag in that cluster, and that kind of creates a little bit of interest on top of that light pink tag because of the way I layered it. So now I'm going to layer up the top cluster, and I'm going to staple those hearts onto the card using my Tim Holtz Tiny Attacher. I just used 2 staples there. And then I'm going to adhere that flare piece that says "right now" to it, and that just brings a different element, a different texture to that cluster. So I'm just adhering the flare with a little bit of score tape, and that's really a heavy-duty adhesive and it holds things well, so I always try to use that when I'm adhering things like flare. So now I'm thinking of ways that I might be able to incorporate some more craft into that main area, but before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and stitch on my layout. So I just kind of drag my sewing machine over. It rests on my desktop. That helps me to use it more. And I'm just going to use some white thread, and I'm going to stitch on the right hand side of that plus sign card. I'm also going to stitch a little bit on the photo on top of where the tag is and just to the left of the title, and then I'm going to stitch down the words "the best." And so I turn my layout, you can see that now, and then I'm also going to stitch some journaling lines. And the journaling lines are a really subtle detail, but I just like the added texture that it gives, and it gives me the lines to journal on, and they're, you know, the visual lines, and you can see them, but without taking up too much visual weight, because I've got a lot of weight going on with all that black. So I wanted something light, and I'm just going to do a little bit of journaling. So I stitch, I think, 7 lines, and I just vary the lengths a little bit, and then I'll write on those my journaling. So I'm almost done stitching here. Usually when I stitch, if I don't want to let the threads hang down, which is a look that I sometimes like, what I'll do is I'll pull all the threads through to the back and then just adhere them with some washi tape and cut off the excess. I went ahead and sped through that so you didn't have to watch me, and I'm just writing my journaling here with my favorite Muji pen, just talking about how grateful I was for a little bright spot in what was a dark time for our family, of my daughter just being the best little traveler ever. In those long, like 10-hour car rides. It was a lot. So I was grateful that she was so good on those little trips. So I'm just going to finish up my journaling, and then to finish it, I just stamp the date, and I don't stamp the exact date. I just do January of 2015 with my Project Life roller date stamp, and this layout is done. I hope that you've enjoyed, and I'm going to come back and just talk to you a little bit about the giveaway that I'm going to be having. Okay, so that is going to complete this layout, and it's also going to complete this series of stamping in scrapbooking. So I hope you'll, next week I'm going to have a roundup where I'll show you all of the different layouts and show you the different tips. I'll also have a roundup on my blog with a list of the tips that will be easy reference for you. I'm going to be doing a giveaway, so if you will comment on this video and let me know what your favorite technique or your favorite layout has been from this series, you'll be entered to win a $20 gift certificate to Simon Says Stamp, where you can pick up some stamps of your own. And I will pick the winner, and a week from today I'll announce it in next week's video. So you'll have until next Wednesday night, which is Sorry, I gotta look at my calendar here. So you'll have until end of day on January 27th to enter to win, and I'll announce the winner on the 28th. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this series. There will be still photos at the end of this, as well as over on my blog at CraftyJenScow.com, where you'll find links to all the products I used that are available, as well as much more information. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.